And I know you all are all on tight time frames, so we're going to go right into this. And because of schedules as well, we're going to start with Karen Paup, co-director of the Texas Low-Income Housing Information Service, and then Crystal Williams, executive director of the Louisiana Housing Alliance. Third, Sheila Crowley, president and CEO of the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, and Riley Morris, senior attorney for the Mississippi Center for Justice. All of you have been very active in this whole area of housing assistance for people in a variety of different circumstances. We're looking forward to hearing your testimony. And because of the time, let's go right in, Ms. Paup, starting with you. If we can take 2 or 3 minutes for an opening statement and then questions. Can you press your button and move the mic close to your mouth, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Karen Paup, and I work as co-director of the Texas Low-Income Housing Information Service, a nonprofit research information and advocacy organization in Austin, Texas. For over 2 decades, I have worked with low-income people, lenders, government, and nonprofits to help deliver solutions, model solutions, for housing the poor in my state. Since Hurricane Katrina, my organization has been engaged on a daily basis with hurricane housing issues. Community leaders, advocates, and hurricane survivors with whom I work would uniformly embrace the findings and recommendations in your subcommittee report. The testimony of Sheila Crowley and Riley Moore speaks to solutions for low-income renters, so I'm going to focus my comments today on low-income homeowners, and I've done so more extensively in my written comments. The core of the problem is this. Disaster housing programs are designed to assist moderate-income homeowners. They've got insurance, and the disaster program makes up the gap, the narrow gap. Low-income homeowners are in a different situation, and in Texas we have very many extremely low-income homeowners who've been affected by the hurricanes that struck our state. Many were elderly members, many were disabled, many were also extremely low-income working families who paid off their mortgage, as you noted earlier, Senator, or who built their houses themselves or who inherited the houses. And FEMA mostly offered them emergency shelter and rental assistance and pushed them to get out of that assistance instead of to come up with a plan for how they would recover their homes. I have 4 changes to recommend in the federal housing disaster programs. First, implement the strike team concept. Fund these more extensive repairs by tapping some of the funds that would otherwise be used for temporary housing. In other words, spend the funds to replace the roofs, fix the sheetrock, get the family back in the home quickly, and avoid long-term temporary rehousing and its costs. 2, establish funding and support for a more coordinated relationship with faith-based and nonprofit organizations. We've seen that they've been a major part of our response, and with more coordination, they could be a greater part of the response. 3, recognize the special needs of the elderly and people with disabilities among the poor in the wake of a disaster. And lastly, implement a case management system as recommended in your report, whereby a single individual serves as a point of contact from emergency shelter until the household is completely, permanently rehoused. The caseworker needs to understand the family's economic situation, their housing needs, and the housing construction process in the case of homeowners. The caseworker would work to determine the best recovery option for the family. If that's to repair the house, then the caseworker would help with work write-ups and cost estimates and hiring a reliable contractor, and then help through the conduct of the repair work. If the approach is a replacement home, the caseworker would help to get the family into a reconstruction program or a program that offered alternative housing from fabricated housing construction companies. In the case of elderly households or persons with disabilities, the counselor would offer the option of a permanent Section 8 housing voucher and to assist the family in finding an appropriate rental unit where they could use their voucher. For all other households, the counselor would assist with the transition to a state-assisted long-term recovery program, including temporary housing until they're complete in that reconstruction program with the state. And details of the family's housing needs should be provided to the states so that the states can properly budget for serving the housing needs of the families in this category. I thank the subcommittee for this opportunity to testify, and I would be happy to answer questions or to bring you back written answers if need be.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate that, Mrs. Paup. Let me ask you, because I know you may have to slip out. When you speak about serving your low-income families, at what level of income approximately do you consider low? Are we dealing with families $10,000 and less, $20,000 and less, 25, 30? What's sort of your cutoff?
Extremely low-income families would be people on minimum Social Security benefits. So elderly people with small Social Security checks, they'd be mostly below $10,000. People who have minimum wage jobs, so they're maybe below $15,000. And then people who are a little better off than that who are below $20,000. So
that's a very, I think you raise a very, very important point, which people don't seem to really, our programs don't seem to really recognize that many of those families, which was very true of parts of the lower Ninth Ward, because these homes had been inherited, many family members, but still families without a lot of current income. Let me ask, I agree with you also about using nonprofits as partners. I find several of them to be outstanding. Would you like, or could you mention one or two models or one or two particular programs that you've seen operate in your area that you could recommend for review, or a model that you think works better than others? Is there anything that comes to your mind that you'd like to share with our committee?
There is a coalition of faith-based organizations in Southeast Texas that's been particularly active in Port Arthur and Beaumont and in that area to help families rebuild their houses. And they, church volunteers come from around the country and Canada to conduct repairs over a fair period of time, and they've done some pretty substantial repairs.
Do you know how many homes they've actually repaired? Do you know?
I can get you a written figure on that. I can't quote off my head. I don't want to give you wrong information.
Well, if you could, that would be helpful, because this committee will be looking for models that work, that are effective and scalable. And we have some in mind, but any of you that might have some suggestions, we would most certainly appreciate.